What if the quietest person in the room became the only one standing between life and death? Tonight, I'll tell you a story where a young waitress, unnoticed by everyone, witnessed a betrayal that could have ended in blood. But instead, she saved the man everyone feared, the Mafia boss. Stay with me till the end because the twist will leave you breathless. And before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more gripping stories like this one. It was a rainy night, the kind where the city streets looked like sheets of glass reflecting the headlights of passing cars. Inside a dimly lit Italian restaurant on the corner of the block, the chatter of customers mixed with the soft clinking of cutlery and the distant hum of music. At the farthest table, away from everyone else, sat the man no one dared to stare at for too long. Dominic Russo, the infamous Mafia boss. Tall, broad-shouldered, with slicked back black hair and eyes as sharp as steel, Dominic was feared and respected in equal measure. Every gesture he made carried weight, and every word that left his mouth was law to those who followed him. Tonight, however, he wasn't surrounded by his usual army of men. Instead, he sat with two of his trusted lieutenants, sipping wine and discussing business in low voices. Lena, a 22-year-old waitress with soft brown eyes and a simple ponytail, moved between tables quietly. She wasn't the type to draw attention. Her uniform was neat but plain, her steps careful and unassuming. Customers rarely remembered her face, and that was how she liked it. But as she carried a tray past Dominic's table, she noticed something that made her heartbeat quicken. One of the men sitting across from Dominic, Carlo, the lieutenant who had been with him for years, wasn't smiling naturally. His hand lingered too close to his jacket pocket, his gaze shifting nervously every few seconds. Lena's instinct screamed at her. Something was wrong. She slowed her pace, pretending to adjust the tray on her arm, and caught a glimpse of cold metal glinting beneath Carlo's jacket. Her breath caught a gun. Her mind raced, panic rising in her chest. Why would Carlo, Dominic's own man, be hiding a weapon under the table? Then it clicked. Betrayal. Carlo wasn't here to protect his boss tonight. He was here to kill him. Lena's hands trembled as she sat down plates on the next table, her mind torn. She was just a waitress, a nobody in this dangerous world. If she spoke up, she could be silenced forever. But if she stayed quiet, Dominic would die, and blood would spill all over this restaurant. She glanced again at Carlo. His thumb was already resting on the safety of the pistol. The moment Dominic leaned forward to pour himself another glass, Carlo would strike. That's when Lena made a decision that would change everything. Moving with quiet determination, she approached Dominic's table, pretending to refill glasses. As she leaned slightly toward him, her lips barely parted, whispering so softly that only he could hear. "Stay quiet and don't move." Dominic's sharp eyes flicked to hers instantly, narrowing with suspicion. No one dared speak to him that way, especially not a waitress. But there was something in her trembling voice, something urgent and terrified, that made him freeze. For a fraction of a second, he stayed still, then subtly followed her gaze toward Carlo's hand. His jaw tightened as realization hit him like a thunderbolt. The next moments felt stretched, every heartbeat loud in Lena's ears. Carlo's hand twitched, ready to draw. Dominic acted with lightning speed, flipping the heavy oak table and knocking it into Carlo just as the gun cleared the holster. A gunshot thundered in the restaurant, sending customers screaming and ducking. Under tables, glass shattered, wine spilled across the floor, and chaos erupted. But Dominic wasn't hit. He had seen the betrayal with his own eyes now. And he knew. He owed that awareness to the trembling waitress who had whispered a warning. Carlo tried to aim again, but Dominic was already on him, wresting the weapon from his hand with brutal force. His other lieutenant, Marco, jumped into action, restraining Carlo against the wall. The sound of fists, broken glass, and muffled screams filled the room, but Lena remained frozen in place, her tray clutched to her chest, her heart pounding louder than the gunshot had been. Dominic turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. She expected rage, suspicion, even violence for daring to interfere in his world. But instead, he gave a small nod, a silent acknowledgement of the life-saving warning she had given. In that moment, Lena realized she had crossed an invisible line. She was no longer just a quiet waitress. She was someone who had saved the life of a man no one dared touch. And from that night on, nothing in her life would ever be the same again. The restaurant had cleared within minutes. The once bustling place now eerily silent, littered with broken glasses and overturned chairs. Rain still poured outside, tapping against the windows like restless fingers. Lena stood near the counter, her breath shaky as Dominic's men dealt with Carlo in the shadows of the back alley. She didn't want to hear the sounds that followed. She knew enough to understand that betrayal was punished without mercy. But what unsettled her more was the heavy silence that fell when Dominic returned, his shoes echoing on the wooden floor. He stopped in front of her, towering over her small frame, his eyes, cold and sharp, locked on hers. For the first time, Lena felt the full weight of standing in front of a man who ruled the city's underworld. She braced herself for his wrath. Instead, Dominic's voice came low, steady, almost curious. "Why did you warn me?" The question stunned her. She opened her mouth, words fumbling out. I saw him reach for the gun. I couldn't just watch." His gaze lingered as if peeling away her fear to search for the truth underneath. Dominic was a man used to betrayal, used to people saving him only for their own gain. But this girl, this quiet, timid waitress, had risked everything without expecting anything in return. That baffled him. "You could have been killed," he said, his tone sharper now. Lena swallowed, her voice trembling. "Maybe, but I couldn't stay quiet. Not when someone's life was about to be taken right in front of me." Her honesty hung in the air, cutting through the tension like a blade. Dominic studied her for a long time, then finally gave a short, approving nod. "You've got courage, girl. More than half the men I know." Those words unsettled her more than any threat because in Dominic's world, courage wasn't a blessing. It was a dangerous invitation. From that night forward, he made sure Lena was under his watch. His men started escorting her home. His presence seemed to follow her even in the shadows, and whispers spread through the neighborhood, the waitress who had saved the Mafia boss. At first, Lena hated it. She hadn't wanted attention, let alone this kind. But as days turned into weeks, she realized something deeper was happening. Dominic wasn't just protecting her. He was testing her, watching how she moved, how she spoke, as though searching for a reason why she had risked everything for him. And slowly, against her will, she found herself drawn into his orbit. Late nights in the restaurant turned into quiet conversations. He would ask her about her life, her dreams, her fears, and she realized he wasn't just the ruthless king of the streets. He was a man, haunted by betrayals, weighed down by the crown he wore. And he, in turn, discovered something rare in her, a heart untouched by greed or power. But shadows never stayed quiet for long. Carlo's betrayal had been only one thread in a tangled web of enemies waiting for Dominic to fall. And now those enemies had noticed Lena. The girl who had whispered, "Stay quiet and don't move," had unknowingly placed herself at the center of a dangerous game. And in Dominic's world, games like these only ended in blood or loyalty that could never be broken. And that, my friends, is the story of how a quiet waitress changed the fate of a mafia boss with just a whisper. But what happens when enemies start targeting her because of the choice she made? Will Dominic protect her, or will she be pulled deeper into his dangerous world? If you want to hear part 2 of this story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel right now, because trust me, the next chapter will leave you stunned.